Let's talk about two things. The game that's called The Godslayer is a PlayStation China Hero project. It's launching on Xbox consoles. Some people are surprised at this. Apparently, this is not the first time that this has happened, but with all the noise that you hear about PlayStation not putting its games on Xbox or whatever it is, this game is published by a different publisher. But PlayStation, having already, invested in the developers one way or the other, has all kinds of different reports. Now, as to PlayStation's development pipeline, this is kind of interesting, right? You look at a game like, say, Black Myth Wukong. It wasn't published by PlayStation on PC, right? But according to Phil Rosenberg, who has, I think, who was set for retirement, who's actually in charge of hold on, let me show you this. This is how we know that they actually money had at Black Myth Wukong. From this particular spotlight, March 27th, when he was talking about his team, he was talking about how there's a global acquisitions team. Their job is to basically go ahead and reach out to these teams that are developing games. And the people that run that team, it's led by Christian Svensson and also by Sean Benson. These are the people who find and acquire these games to put in PlayStation's portfolio. So when Phil Rosenberg was talking about this, he talked about Black Myth Wukong, he talked about Stellar Blade, he talked about Genshin Impact, and so on and so forth. This is how we just looked at this article and said, wow, what was common among all these games? They were all at some point an exclusive to PlayStation. PlayStation fanboys, they denied it. They said this is not the case. Show us the deal, like they've ever seen a PlayStation deal before. And, they decided that they were going to go ahead and, in a sense, fight wind and say it was a Series S, which the Turk, shout out to him, played Black Myth Wukong on a potato PC that he put together, limiting the RAM and doing all kinds of crazy stuff to cripple the PC, and the game still ran. But that aside, when you kind of think about all of this, this is as a result of a market that is so saturated that if you're going to be bringing your games out, you really got to get your games to where more people are. And it also leads into the conversation of this cumulative launching of games at this cadence on PC and different platforms. Now, when I made my last video where I talked about how Colin Moriarty finally has, maybe he's known this reality, but he's now, talking about, right now there are 19,000 games about to launch on Steam. Where's that tweet of his? And I was talking about this in the video. An audience member of mine said, VG, showing that some obscure games on, actually good doesn't disprove the substantial percentage of games on Steam that are shovelware. Now, here's the thing. You said, why I'm so insistent of dying on this hill anyway, and there's plenty of cheaply low-made quality games on console stores too. And he says you don't have to lie about what's on Steam to defend PC gaming. Vital Vampire. Let me be very honest with you. When I'm talking about these shovelware games on Steam, there is a preconceived experience that is actually driving me. I'll give you a story to basically go ahead and, in a sense, expose it to you. You see, I work in education. The biggest problem we have is that education is very, very weird today. We give the kids and have given these kids devices to do their schoolwork. Right as COVID hit, because we were working remotely, we were figuring things out, they now have access to AI. Many math teachers don't give homework anymore. They just literally tell the kids to do the work in class. Because if the kids take that thing outside the classroom, it's no longer that app where you have to take a picture of the math equation and freaking ChatGPT will just solve the whole thing for them. That's the problem we're facing now in schools. That's one. Secondly, those devices, they will bypass our filters and go play what you call slop. These games that y'all are calling shovelware is literally the food of Gen Z. So I laugh when y'all say that because if they catch steam, this is all they're going to play. And this is most of what they play. So you and I, millennials, Gen X, boomer, whatever it is, may be saying that this is slop, but there's an entire generation of gamer who is, number one, not going to pay for your games. They're part of that 30%. They don't have the money anyways, right? But they will play these games. Some of them have an old laptop that dad or mom gave them. That was an old gaming laptop from back in the day, but it can run majority of these games. They look at it, the game is free on Steam. They download it and they can play it. Let me give you another example. And I'm giving you real life clues because one thing that kind of puts me in a very strange position with the gaming industry and kind of looking at its trends is simply because I'm looking at the next gamer and I'm just like shocked. The next gamer is coming. Guys, I told y'all before, we need not judge gaming from the perspective of the unks of gaming. That's the biggest error that we'd make. This is why a small, obscure YouTube channel talking about video games is literally telling you things that other big YouTube channels or more established YouTube channels around the gaming conversation are arriving to 2 years later. Why? Because by happenstance, I just got a head start on them. Not because, I'm super unique or whatever. I'm just observing the daily life in the future generation that's going to be coming out and playing the games. It's just, and I have to literally sit there like, what's the name of that game where you try to boink one thing that comes out of like a groundhog and you're like, yeah. And that's how we're putting out fires and blocking websites that these kids are going to play these weird video game slops. So I'm looking at these games that you call slops and I'm saying, man, Steam is the, if they look at, they'll be like, oh my God, they'll be infatuated. They won't even think about your, Spider-Man games. Back to that example. A colleague of mine who, we've been talking about, building a PC for his, son. Finally, the son has finally left his Nintendo Switch, doesn't use it much, uses his VR device and plays more games on his phone. But he's been asking that he wants to build a gaming PC. He's not asking for a PlayStation. He's not asking for an Xbox. I told you these kids are PlayStation, I said PlayStation, they're more PC oriented because that's what they're used to. Remember, we gave them the devices years ago to improve their productivity so they're not losing papers on assignments and all this. We were trying to do something good. The decision makers anyways. I'm just the lowly educator. So I finally, said, while he was asking me questions about GPU, because the boy bought a motherboard from his own savings. He bought himself a PC case and a few other things. So he needed to get some other components. So I told, my colleague, my bro, I said, bro, man, what you need to do is just ask him, instead of going to buy an expensive GPU or a GPU that's not going to be sufficient, ask him his top 5 played games. And here's the text message I received. Thank God I had it in writing. He told me that his first games, I don't really know what games he plays, or I don't think he knows, but he said he plays Repo. Excuse me. Where's Repo? It's on the sloppy list over here. Maybe you might not call it slop, but I don't think I'll play it. I'll call it slop. I don't know about y'all. Well, here it is. It's number 12 on the list. Okay, so Repo. He plays Skate, which is a free-to-play game. I wouldn't even touch it. He plays Fortnite. I wouldn't touch that either. Rocket League, I wouldn't touch it. Minecraft, I probably will touch a little bit of the dungeons. I played dungeons a little bit. I thought it was fun. But that's what the kids in my house play, so that's not even far from it. And then he said this, anything horror or adventure-related and shooting games-related as well. Anything horror is literally your keyword. There are these weird, janky, horrific, shaky games that are very popular within the community of these youngins growing up. Let me get you guys in on some trends. Yo, PlayStation exclusivists, come and sit down and listen. Your children are playing these games. Before you sit there and start yapping and talking all this, let me go ahead and just learn you something, because we have to deal with this from the educational perspective. We actually now my classes have gone back to classic classes. We don't use those devices barely anymore. Once they walk in, I said, buddy, shut your Chromebooks off, put them in your bags. We're going to do this. Now, my class facilitates that. I'm not going to tell you what I teach because, I don't want you to, I don't want you to be, to get jelly. And so these janky games, like these like gorilla something fiery game, horror, janky, knifey guy is so weird. Another situation, another instance, another student of mine was talking about, I'm just asking them about music and all this stuff. And they told me about a game inside of Roblox that has some really interesting music that's almost like garage music of the early 2000s from Great Britain. UK people, garage music, right? The one that like people used to make tick, 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 that used to make with like, low Fruity Loops and all that stuff that blew up back in like the, I think like mid 2000s or so, that became very popular at some point. The trend kind of died off. Yeah. And I'm not going to tell you the name of this one game, but it's a game that's inside of Roblox. And it's like a horror survival game, like a chase game. I'm not going to say the name. And I was very surprised when I started watching, videos of this game, because when they say anything, I'm like, I'm supposed to be in the know. So I take some time and I go research it if I remember. And I was like, this is what these kids are playing. My guy, these are the kinds of games. Now, where do you think these people that are making these games are actually getting the, what's driving them to make games like this? Is it because they don't, number one, many of them don't have the resources to make, the high production video games. But how are they aware of what kinds of games to make? It's simply because that generation of gamer plays games that we would consider weird. There's another creator that made Choo Choo Charles. This game was a very interesting game. It's just a shooter about a train that, it's chasing you and you're supposed to survive and all that stuff. And I got to tell you, this was a very interesting game. When I saw this game, because this kid used to do Unreal Engine tutorials, I was always amazed because I dabbled into game development. I still am. We're taking a hiatus for the meantime. And when he was making this game, I thought, man, for a 17, 18-year-old at the time, he's now, in his 20s. I said, this kid's very impressive. And he chose this game to make because he'd been making all kinds of games all over the place. And this game is actually, rated to have sold over at least hundreds of thousands of units. Those are the estimates by all the play trackers. 488, 509, 585,000. Now he was able to use viral marketing and the fact that the game. Who do you think were most of the players who bought a game like this? Guys and girls, there are things that I don't. And for the sake of I don't want to be saying too much because this kind of information is very useful for me. I need not put it out there immediately, because once you put it out there, a lot of agencies and people who are, they come and they start, trying to pick at it, because many of them can't see that perspective. And I don't want to lord it over them. I mean, to be honest, I just want to say the experience, how I see it. And it might be anecdotal, but I'm not so certain about the anecdotal nature of it, because they also communicate. This is a generation that has access to, moving information as fast as ever. They don't have to wait for information anymore. You give them an assignment that is 50 questions long, they will punch it into an AI model and be done with the assignment in 4 minutes, bypass your filters of your organization, and jump straight into what you call shovelware and play and enjoy and talk about it and brag about it. This is their arcade. This is when we used to go to the arcades and, play against one another. This is the arcade of the young generation. It's what it is. So again, when I saw this comment, I was shocked because I guess perhaps I haven't put that context in front of you yet. This is one of the reasons, like I said, I get to experience, deal with, work around, and, I have to create solutions against this paradigm as a problem or as a possible hindrance, right, in my work, and help these kids to be successful in the area that I want them to be successful in. They can play their games when they're home. And so I don't usually like putting that context into this, but I have to tell you, man, the Twitter and the YouTube understanding of the gaming scene is highly misguided and it's highly warped, because there's so much that's going on YouTube. There's so much that's going on, the social media spaces in these games that we're not seeing. The algorithm is already tailored to you. Maybe open up a browser window on an account, log out, and just look at gaming outside of your YouTube account. You'll immediately understand what I'm saying. You won't have to worry about you won't have to worry about arguing with me, or once you just log out of your YouTube account. Delete all of your history, maybe use a different browser. Just no account, and then just look at the gaming sections of these places. Once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it anymore. That's one of the things that I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to move on. If you believe it or not, or if you even take the time to try it out, I think you'll probably see the reasons. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.